The big question for this segment is, how did collective learning generate new forms of social complexity in agrarian societies? And how complex is an agrarian civilization in terms of energy flows and societal structure? Social complexity, in the words of Kent Flannery, is best described by the amount of segregation, that is, social differentiation, and centralization, social integration in a society. As an example of differentiation, think of the various jobs that you could have if you were living in a forager band, a Mesopotamian city, or in Sydney today. Among foragers, you can hunt, make tools, gather plants, and take care of children or the feeble. Most likely you will do more of these at once. In a Mesopotamian city, you can choose between a couple dozen jobs: a farmer, a shepherd, a weaver, a merchant, a mason, an engineer, a brewmaster, a priest or a scribe, and various other retainers. And finally, in Australia today, you can choose from thousands of official job descriptions. As a measure of integration, you can look at the size of any given community. Forager bands might number a couple dozen. Early agricultural communities number close to 100. And late agrarian societies may occupy cities that number tens to hundreds of thousands. The cities that accommodate orders of magnitudes larger communities than bands of foragers emerged only after people domesticated plants and animals. Animal breeding and farming helped people derive many times more energy from the same area than hunting and gathering. Leslie White, in 1940s, was the first anthropologist to categorize societies according to their ability to harness and control energy. He gauged the amount of energy at the disposal of a forager community of 50 people as 50 times the energy of the average member of the community. Yet, if we consider infants, the sick, the old and feeble, this energy would be less than 1 manpower per capita. This human-derived energy is constant and finite. While people could improve their efficiency by inventing new tools, the bow and arrow, harpoon, needle, etc., or by improving all technologies, once they have achieved maximum efficiency and reached the limits of bodily energy resources, their culture could develop no further. This ceiling to culture building, argued White, could be broken through only once people domesticated animals and cultivated plants. Living plants and animals are biochemical mechanisms which of themselves accumulate and store up energy derived originally from the sun. With agriculture and animal husbandry, these accumulations can be utilized periodically in the form of milk, wool, eggs, fruits, nuts, seeds, and so on. In the case of animals, they can also be used as a source of labor throughout their lifetime. When people domesticated animals and brought plants under cultivation, they harnessed powerful forces of nature and made them available for their community, allowing a greater yield from a given piece of land. If we look at the difference between a wild plant and animal economy and a domestic economy from the energy input-output perspective, wild plant and animal economy produces a fixed and limited return for an expenditure of human energy. In agriculture and animal husbandry, however, the return for the expenditure of human labor can increase indefinitely. With the perfection of human husbandry and agriculture, a given quantity of human labor produces much more than it could before these forces were harnessed. Archaeology and history show that by and large the ability of people to procure food and create surplus was tremendously increased by the domestication of animals and cultivation of plants. Once the surplus from farming and animal husbandry obviated the need to move in search of food, the birth rates of sedentary communities increased. Women could bear more children at shorter intervals. When you combine the growing birth rates, as a result of sedentism and greater yield of energy from a unit of land, as a result of farming and animal husbandry, you get a demographic explosion. The great civilizations of China, India, Mesopotamia, Egypt, Mexico, and Peru sprang up quickly after the agricultural arts had attained some degree of development and maturity. With increased energy resources, human communities were able to become sedentary, expand, specialize, build cities, and develop new ways of life. The emergence of first cities was revolutionary. Cities did not represent just an increase in the scale of human settlements. They brought about a change in kind. Cities became the hubs of new kinds of social, economic, and religious activities, transforming social interactions and generating new roles, ranks, and identities within a new environment of buildings, streets, and monumental art. The density of social interaction in cities was unprecedented from earlier times. Sedentary agrarian societies generated surplus which supported new classes of specialists who, instead of working in the fields, could apply their energy to developing new arts, crafts, and technologies. Within large communities, such as cities, entire groups of specialists could live together and interact. Their interaction led to the refinement of old and the creation of new knowledge over time. Another aspect of large communities helped record and extend this knowledge: the emergence of new specialists, the bards and the scribes, who preserved knowledge either through oral history or through writing. To illustrate the significance of community size in the reproduction of knowledge, let's consider the inverse process. Anthropologists have documented a phenomenon where small, isolated societies lose previously known technologies. The classic example is the isolation of Tasmania at the beginning of the Holocene as sea levels rise. Tasmania was colonized by the same people as Australia, and for millennia was joined with the continent, and people interacted with local populations using similar technologies. When sea levels rose and the Tasmanians became isolated, they gradually lost the fishhooks and bow and arrows, despite the fact that they previously had these technologies. The size of new communities was crucial in facilitating both the creation and the preservation of new specialized knowledge. In terms of measuring the complexity of energy flows and societal structures in an agrarian civilization, we can look at some of the proxies that archaeologists use. One of these measures is residential differentiation, which describes the variation in the size and types of houses and house contents. Another one is mortuary variability, which describes the variation in the number and quality of goods that people are buried with. Both of these can give us an idea of differences in wealth and social status and political power among the people in early cities. The number of people that a given area supports provides another proxy for local energy flows and social dynamics. At the regional level, the settlement hierarchy, the variation in settlement size and architectural elaboration, can indicate the number of control levels above the producer communities, producing a proxy for the overall stratification of a society. All of these measures together help us gather a picture of agrarian social complexity and how it differs from forager groups.